Hello, this is Chris speaking.
Hey, Chris, it's Knives. Can you hear me okay?
Knives Monroe, how are you? Can you help me? Can you hear me?
I can hear you splendidly. I missed your velvety tones.
Velvety tones. Oh, my goodness. That's scary.
It's good to hear
Good
from
to hear
you,
your
man.
voice.
Oh, man, it's been a while. When was the last time we hung out?
I would say when I jumped out of a plane for no apparent good reason.
That was great. That was a great time, and thank God that's documented and it's out there forever. Like that's my yearbook right there.
I look at that video stuff that you sent us, Cole, and I looked at it the other day. I have it saved in my favorites, and I look at it, and I'm like, it was just such a surreal thing. It was crazy.
Surreal's definitely the best word for it. Well, thanks for making some time out of the day, man. I know school started, and you probably never even take time off. So this means a lot, and I want to make the best use of your time that I can. So I really appreciate that. If you like, we can just get right into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's up to you, brother. I honestly was just calling and checked on you the other day. So anything you want to get into, I'm game. I just told you that we were friends, and I was checking on you to make sure that things were going good in your life, and just thought I'd check in and say hey.
I appreciate that, man. And yeah, things are going well. Let's just go ahead and get right into it.
Okay.
I kind of want this to be like a part 2 of the podcast that you, Dakota, and I did in Kentucky, just because I feel like we barely scratched the surface. So I know quite a bit about you. I probably know more about you than you do me, but that's because Dakota, gosh, has just told me all the great things about you and how you've been there for him. And I was rummaging through that podcast that we did for Owning It 2 years ago, and was listening to it again recently because I think in May I was trying to get like a little kernel out of it. And it's just so deep and so personal, and it just sounds like you were always a presence for Dakota, even when he was like in high school. Is that right?
High school, no. Actually, Toby Young, who you've had on the podcast as well too for Owning It. They've known each other since he was a little kid. I didn't meet Dakota until he was probably in sniper school and he was home. Toby and I were playing pickup basketball out at the high school. A lot of adults, we just get together, make a phone call, and Toby says, "Hey, I want to introduce you to a buddy of mine that's a Marine. He's home on leave right now." And he says, "I know your dad's a Marine and whatnot." He you connect with people who understand and know military people, come from military families, and introduced each other, said hello. I ended up actually guarding him in the pickup game. We played ball that night, hung out for just a brief moment. He was a much younger man then, and he kind of went off that night, getting into whatever shenanigans young men get into. And then it wasn't until after he returned from Afghanistan. So now fast forward, he returns from Afghanistan. He's out of the military. He's out of the Marine Corps. And he enrolls at Lindsey Wilson College, and that's how we became friends. So like Dakota, Toby says to Dakota, "Hey, remember that guy a long time ago?" I think there was kind of like, yeah, kind of, not really. Well, he's my buddy, and that's who you need to connect with. So then we just reconnected, and as the story goes, like I honestly, you know me, you've gotten to know me. I would say to a lot of people, I just said, "Hey," I said, "I'm always there for you. It's nice to meet you. My office door is always open. Come on up anytime." But there's always those people in your life that really take you up on that offer. Yeah. Well, the next day there was Dakota. He was in my office, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day, and we started going to lunch every day when he got out of class, and we started talking and just hanging out, and then that led into riding bikes and going running and hanging out at the Young's house, hanging out at his family's farm, Big Mike's farm, and we just developed a friendship. And then that's when one day in the office he says, "What do you think about the White House?" And then that's it, kind of just and then the rest is history.
Literally, wow! One thing just kind of led to another. There, that's madness. Yeah. I was
Toby's the connecting point, though. For like in terms of him and I meeting each other, I always want to give credit to Toby. He was the connecting point because he had known Dakota since he was a little boy, and, you know, their farms, they knew each other, you know, Big Mike knew Toby's family. It was just that was the connecting point.
Wow, that's amazing. So I will say, you being the type of human, and you did the same for me. Let me just tell the listeners, the first time I met you, I go to Colombia. I'm following Dakota. I'm his cameraman, for lack of a better word. And I carried that camera with me everywhere I went. I mean, except the bathroom. But sometimes I took it to the bathroom because you never know. And I wasn't really dressed to roll jujitsu or, you know, play basketball. I was just there to film. And I see this tall guy, and you come up to me. And Dakota already talked about you, but I hadn't put a face to the name. And you were like, so what do you think about all this? And I'm like, man, my mind was blown, you know? And I just, you kind of had the advantage over me. And I just remember your energy. Like, I don't even remember what I ate yesterday, but I can remember the first time we met and looking at you. And I think I had the camera on as well, and just being like, who's this guy? Like, he doesn't seem like everybody else from Kentucky. There's something really inviting and warm about him. And I could, not to get too hippy-dippy, but I could feel your EQ, your emotional intelligence, just vibrating just from you. And lo and behold, the rest of the night continues, and we all get our butts kicked. And I put two and two together, and I was like, oh, wow, this is Chris Schmidt. This is the Schmitty. I was like, oh, no wonder. And I'll never forget that, because, you know, no smoke, meeting men like you that are that inviting and that cool and just have that EQ, it's like 1 in a million. It's super, super rare. And I always feel like obviously I'm projecting, but that I bring like kind of this cloud of mixed energy to people. Like, people don't really know how to pinpoint me, and oftentimes I have to subvert their expectations. And I think they hear me speak, and then they're like, oh, he's more thoughtful than he appears. But looks can be deceiving. But you just treated me with open arms, and you were just so cool. And that was a very warm first impression. Where does that come from? You're not like everybody else.
Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you, Knives. I mean, I'm glad that was the first impression you had. I mean, I just, you know, my recollection of that experience too was that I knew that you were coming with Dakota, and that this was a guy that was going to start to, like, the way I thought of you was like, you were the guy that he was putting a lot of trust in, that was going to be part of helping him, I don't know, like, connect in a more virtual way. You know, is that the proper terminology, I guess? You know, just building content and really capturing Dakota in all the different platforms that are out there. And you know, I'm kind of a person that if you're a friend of my friend, then you're my friend too. You know what I mean? You know, so it's like I think my circle of friends is pretty small. I have a lot of acquaintances, but I have a small circle of friends, like people I really feel like I go to war with. And when a person in my circle says, yeah, this is a good guy, this is a guy that I trust, this is a guy that I'm counting on, well, then kind of like I guess, what is it, like the dating? You know, like when you date somebody and you're trying to feel them out, like we were kind of already past that, because Dakota had already given you sort of the you know, the seal of approval that you were a good guy. So, you know, I see, and I know how it is. Like, you come, I don't know, you know how it is when you walk into a room full of people, you don't know everybody, or you're in an area, in an atmosphere where you don't know people. There can be that awkwardness, and maybe you know, feeling a little bit unsure of yourself, where you fit in the whole big picture. And I don't know, maybe it's my role at the college, you know, because of what I do. But you asked, like, how did it start? I think it goes back to just growing up. I didn't grow up in Columbia, Kentucky. I was already an outsider looking in for a lot of years. I grew up in New York City. You know, I grew up, you know, dad in the Marine Corps. You know, my parents were civil servants. You know, I'm a product of the very early 70s, so post-Vietnam. going through the whole 70s, living, my Catholic school friends teased me and growing up and called me the public school kid of my peer group. I was the public school kid, went to a predominantly black high school, it was just, I grew up in a pretty tough neighborhood, a very diverse neighborhood. We, growing up how I grew up, you identified yourself by your ethnicity. So I was the Irish, Yugoslavian, German kid. My friends were, from the Dominican Republic. They were from Puerto Rico. They were from, whose family was descendants from Italy, who was from Russia, who was from, all the, so like the class really was like, I learned the term early on, melting pot. And that was kind of, we learned that in like school, like we're a world made up of people or from a melting pot, all these different personalities and countries and ethnicities and religious beliefs. So I don't know. I mean, I kind of felt like, when people moved into the neighborhood, you welcomed people to your neighborhood. Neighbors went over and saw each other and you made friends. You introduced yourself to the new kid in the neighborhood. And you said, hey, let's go play stickball. Let's go play handball. Let's go get in trouble. Let's go, whatever it is you did. I don't know. I mean, I saw Knives Monroe and I was like, here's a guy who's trying to figure out where he's going to fit in. Are you going to be the square peg in the round hole or, you know what I mean? And, I don't know, at the college, I try to welcome people. We welcome 500-600 new students to campus every single year. There has to be a lot of people that welcome them and make them feel invited, feel like they belong there. And I don't know, it seems normal to me to make a person feel that way. So I just accepted you as part of our family, part of the Dakota family.
Wow. Well, I'm definitely grateful that you went ahead and did that. I will say maybe it's my background and the way that I grew up, but it probably says a lot about me too. It's almost disarming to have somebody greet you with that much respect and dignity. To be honest, it's not common, especially where I come from. Like it's almost alien to me. I'm almost instinctually not anymore, but I think at that time, I didn't really get out much. I was a 9-to-5 cubicle guy, and then when I went home, I just edited little videos. But at that time, I can say that I was almost suspicious of if somebody was being nice to me. I was just like, I didn't want to get hurt, if I'm being honest. But with you, I'll put my guard down, and I will say on that trip was the first time I ever visited Kentucky. First time I was probably ever even in the Eastern time zone, if you go a little further. And that was the day where I put my guard down and I, in my heart, went all in on Dakota. When I met Big Mike, and I think I told him this too, we did a podcast with him, owning it, meeting him and riding in the back of a little ATV and seeing the cows and just seeing how cool Big Mike was. I mean, I grew up in the dirt, like actual desert, palm trees and stuff. And so that was, Kentucky, that's the heartland of America, It really is.
Absolutely. You're getting into the soil right there.
I was in the soil and it was alien to me. It was an experience I'll never forget. Like I anchored it because I knew one day I'd want to go back to it. And just thinking about it right now, it gives me a warm feeling. I get a little nostalgic, even though it wasn't that long ago. But I wanted to ask you, how many birthdays have you had, sir?
I'm 48. I was born January 4th, 1971. So I'm coming up here soon. I'll be experiencing my 49th birthday.
Mazel tov. That's amazing.
Thank you.
So you grew up in the 80s, like you're coming of age.
Absolutely. Heck yeah. Proud of it.
Proud of it. When do you recall your self-awareness kind of kicking in? You seem like a hyper self-aware guy. Like I said, the melting pot, the product of the time, in relation to being an outsider, like that has to kind of put you in your head. Does it not?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I've sort of, I don't know if the right word is struggled. I've struggled with that question personally for a long time because I think I've always been in my head. I'm very, I spend a lot of time thinking like, how did that make the other person feel? What's the connecting point to this person, that person?
Where do you think that comes from?
I don't know. I mean,
you think it's genetic?
I think it comes, I don't want to be, all Freudian and, and stuff like that. I mean, I came from a I came from, I love my parents. They did a great job. They divorced, ironically, after 25 years of marriage. But, it was tough. My dad struggled post-Vietnam. He was, him and Dakota get along. They're good friends because I think they share a lot in common. He was a machine gunner, Marine Corps. He saw significant, fighting over in Vietnam, lost a lot of his men. And so when he came back, he was not right. And my dad knows I can talk about this openly. He was a closet Marine combat veteran for 40 years, and I was the oldest, so I grew up. I was a product of sort of an accident. My mom was 16. They were unwed. All of a sudden they're pregnant. Blah, blah, all that kind of stuff was going on. But they did the best they could. We grew up in the projects. It was just, I don't know, it was just weird. So like I think I was always conscious of being the poor kid growing up. My parents busted their ass to give us everything. But, early on, there wasn't a lot. And they made the most out of nothing. And so I was always conscious, kids, you know how it is. Kids are tough. Kids are just brutal. And so when you're growing up, I never had, my jeans were always too short because we would get every last inch out of them. And I was growing like a weed. You've met me. I'm a tall guy, really tall guy. And I was growing like crazy. I always had on the aftermarket shoes and this and that. And so, it was kind of I don't know, you just kind of, how you just kind of always wondering. I was always in my own head, like, was I not good enough for this? Was I not good enough for that? And then, my parents, I think they wanted more for their kids. So they set high standards. My parents were really, and I'm proud that they did that because I think it gave me a good work ethic. Like I watched them work. My mom worked at a liquor store at night. She did this job during the day. My dad ended up working for the post office. Even as he was severely, I'll use the word crippled. He was on crutches, and somehow I don't know how he got past it, but post-Vietnam, he was so shot up. They let him deliver mail. Can you imagine on crutches? They gave him what they call a mule. He had this mule, was a three-wheeler, and he'd put the postal bag, hang it over the three-wheeler, and he'd push it along while he was limping along with the crutch. And this is back in the day when he would bring me to work, and I would help him deliver the mail up those big, tall city stoops. So you can imagine that would not be obviously allowed today. So I don't know. I mean, they instilled sort of a work ethic in me, but all along I was always in my head about, like a lot of the kids in my neighborhood came from the other side of the road. There was a sort of a dividing line in our neighborhood between what became the more affluent neighborhoods and when you were on the poor side. And me and several of my buddies lived on sort of the poor side and the other guys didn't. And so I just was always sort of, when you kind of look over the fence, I was kind of always looking over that road. I was always looking over the fence. What do those people think of me? Am I not good enough? Can I not do this? Can I not do that? And then there was, I think a lot of it was there's people. I think I believe God put me in a place now where I get to then share with students and help them where people didn't. Like I was told I couldn't go to college. I was told I wasn't smart enough. I was told I couldn't do this. I was told I couldn't do that. There's those people couldn't tell you can't do anything. There's a lot of people, I thought I was going to wrestle in high school. I get all the way to high school. They canceled the wrestling program. So my dad was like, well, you're tall. So I go out for the basketball team. Well, I got cut from the basketball team. I'm not embarrassed by that. And I remember I worked so hard, but I'd never played basketball growing up. So, I mean, like you're not smart enough to know the reality. Like I really probably didn't deserve to make the basketball team because I wasn't very good. But I was really hurt by the fact that I tried really hard. And I knew that my effort was more than other people's effort because there was other people that were just cashing it in. Like they obviously had more skills, but they didn't work as hard as I worked. And I thought that my effort should be more rewarded. I remember feeling hurt. I remember going to the coach, and my dad said, well, if you want to do something about it, do something about it. So I went to the coach, and I told him, I said, well, can I be the towel boy or whatever it is you call somebody, the manager or whatever? And he said, yeah. And lo and behold, a bunch of the kids flunked off the team at the first report card. And he said, well, guess what? You're not the manager anymore. You're going to play. And I remember I thought, this is my opportunity. And I just worked my ass off and was fortunate enough to play on some really good teams, not because of me, because of other people. But that sort of created a work ethic. And then, and so all the people said I couldn't play. I ended up playing a little junior college basketball. So I'm always proud that I played junior college basketball. But I even think about that, the people who said I couldn't, because I had kind of tailed off. I focused on athletics and I stopped focusing on school. And I didn't score very well, so I did not get accepted in the schools I thought I could get accepted in. And so I'm not blaming anybody. I accept full responsibility for those things. But I remember, like, there were people, like, there's always those doubters, like, oh, well, you should just go be, I remember somebody said, you should just go be a fireman or a post, or what they say, you should go be a New York City policeman. And I'm thinking, well, first of all, those are noble positions, and you shouldn't just make it so callous, like, oh, just go do that.
It's not an
those guys are, they're brave as can be. I mean, those are legit positions. And I would have been proud to have done any of those, but I aspired to want to go to school. And I thought, why is another person in my life telling me no? You can't do this. And so I don't know. I'm glad, I'm fortunate that there were other people who supported me and backed me up. I mean, like look at Dakota, look at the things that he does for people or try to support people. I'm not. And so I think that as time went on, it was that kind of drive and motivation to be welcoming and open to people and to say, hey, Knives Monroe, nice to meet you. Hey, join our little happy band of people and let's hang out and enjoy each other's company and see what we can learn from each other, and so I don't know, that's a long answer, but I mean, I think there's just been a lot of things,
Of course. Were you an only child?
I have a brother, and, I think it depends on how you look at it. My brother and I grew up in the same house for 3.5 years apart. He's younger, I'm older, but he hasn't spoke to anybody in the family for probably a dozen, if not more years. It was tough growing up in our house. There was, my dad and I, we settled this a long time ago. I mean, it was, he was, I'm not trying to make excuses for him. It was a pretty tough situation. He was abusive. He had anger issues. Again, he was dealing with some stuff. I don't know why I handled it the way I handled it. And my dad and I have buried that hatchet many, many years ago. But my brother did not. And I remember my brother called child services. So we actually had child services in the house. There was a big mess. It was a mess. It was a mess. And, I think a lot of people could hold resentment. I didn't. I just kind of moved on. The one thing my parents taught us to be was resilient and to be independent. And I thought, my brother's choosing to define his life the way he's choosing to define it. I'm choosing to define my life the way I define it. We are polar opposites. Like, I'm sort of conservative and he's very liberal. I wish him well, but he didn't want to be part of my life. And so I'm not going to beg him to be part of mine.
Wow. That's rough.
And man. I'm not afraid to talk about it. Just, it is what it is.
Yeah, no, I share something very similar with my father, where was I? What was it? There was maybe a podcast or something I was listening to, and they were talking about something very similar like what you said. And 10, 15, 20 years later, they buried the hatchet, this man and his father, on the podcast. And I remember hearing this and thinking, I have no interest in that. Like, I feel no love for my father. Like, I don't. I have some family that say, yeah, well, he's your dad, though. He's your dad. But no, he's not. He was never there. And he made the conscious choice to choose what he chose. And I make the conscious choice every day to sweat and bleed and, all the tears and stuff for my kids, and I don't see any other way. But so I definitely know where you're coming from, but I think our perspectives are in the minority. I think most people would say, well, he's your family. So, you got to make the effort. You got to be the bigger man. But the truth is, if somebody's made up their mind and that's the way they feel, that's a harsh reality. And we have to move on and take care of the family that has their arms open.
And that's the thing too, is like my baggage, I don't think there's a single soul walking around that doesn't have baggage, right? Like, don't we all kind of have our own baggage? Whether we express it or not, it's there. My baggage with, say, my family is not the same as my brother's baggage and his issues. And so a long time, like when I was a younger man, I was mad at him. Like, I would be mad, like, you're causing this, you're causing that. But as I got older, once I was gone, I was on my own. I was starting my own family. You've met my wife, and you've met my wife Rebecca, and you've met my son Cole. And I had to be my own person, my own parents, my own husband, my own individual.
Does your brother have kids? Does your brother have kids?
From what I understand, he does now, but I wouldn't know that other than through like second cousins and stuff like that have told me he does.
I think that has a profound impact on your perspective, right? Like you choosing to be a man and being a provider and being there for your son and your wife through thick and thin. I think that says a lot about you, and I think it broadens the horizon for your perspective. So that's the only reason why I ask.
Yeah, and that was one of the things. Like I remember going to my brother when Cole was born, my son was born, and said, "Hey, we don't have a very big family. If you want to be an active part of his life as an uncle," and I started inviting him. So now he had been sort of distant, but we still communicated. I invited him for holidays, invited him, because that's just kind of, I guess, what you do. Like that's the stereotype, right? Don't you invite family to holidays and do stuff like that? And he came for a while, but then it just became more and more distant, and the distance between him and my dad, and then the distance between him and my mom grew more until he was just not part of my life anymore. And I wasn't going to. I don't feel like I should beg anybody to be part of my life. And you asked something that I want to go back to. So like, I come from a super small nucleus family. There's just, my immediate family consists of my dad, my mom, Rebecca, and Cole. Like that's it. Like there's no aunts, uncles. Now, my second part of my family is my aunt Madeline, my uncle Mendo, and my three cousins, and that's it. And after that, there are people, but I need somebody else to tell me who they are because I don't know who they are. So for a Knives Monroe, for a Dakota Meyer, for a Toby and Ann Young, or Dean Adams, you met Dean Adams. I could go on and on. But Mike Staten, who you met Mike Staten. He was on a podcast. Abe Cross. There's Tim Kelly. There's Stephen Marston. There's these people in my life. Claude Bacon. I could just go on and on. There are people who entered my life and chose to be genuine friends. And when they chose to be my genuine friend and really be open and honest to me, I accept them 100% as family. Like they might as well be the same blood that flows through me. And so that's why, like when you guys went through the change and you had an opportunity, that's why I reached out to you and said, hey, Knives, like, I know you're moving on to things for your family and opportunity and stuff like that. Like, hey, we're still boys. If I could ever do anything to help you, let me know, because I really do see you as family. It's just, and so that's why, like, he doesn't, like, I think true family can call each other up at any moment and be there for one another. You don't have to like check in every hour on the hour. And it's not about who got what at Christmas and all that kind of crap. It's genuine friendships and family are because they're there for each other. And so I don't need somebody to be my biological brother to be defined as my brother.
And I feel the exact same way, for sure. You don't have to be blood to be family. Yeah. And you reaching out to me, you were one of the only people that did, and I don't say that in a salty way, not by any means, but it meant something profound to me, and that's why I wanted to extend the invitation to get on the podcast, just for posterity, just to kind of have this moment, because 2 years from now, I may need it, or someone else listening right now is going through something, or maybe is on the cusp of going through something like this, a transition, and I think it could be a blanket for them. I mean, I really mean that. So it meant a lot that you reached out. I haven't really talked about it on a public forum. I don't think I'm so important that I have to necessarily, but people that I've talked to, like my family, I told them, and it came as a surprise. So you were the first person outside of, House Monroe that inquired about it. And it felt nice. It felt really nice to have that extension. So thank you for that. It goes a long way. I wanted to ask, so on Twitter, I can always look forward to your hashtag live, learn, lead tweets.
Yes,
Maybe
sir.
I got the order mixed up, and I always look forward to it. Do you write those yourself, or do you have some sort of calendar that you copy and paste that from? Because they're always so introspective, and it just so happens every time I'm up at 5:30 in the morning or something and I see them, it just so happens you're saying exactly what I'm feeling, and you say it better. So where does that come from? You're one of the most inspirational people that I know, and not in a car salesy way. Like, you walk it, you talk it, and I think, just for the listeners out there, I know this, like, you attribute so much of, obviously you had adversity, but your parents led by example, and so I think you picked the best parts about them and put it into your utility belt, right?
They were a staple, yeah.
Yeah. So, obviously you deal with kids every day and young adults, and you see that people are going through adversity themselves right now. This engine that you have to inspire people, to teach them, to give back, there's something really creative about that. Where does that come from? Where do you get that material? How do you have time for that?
Oh, gosh. You asked a lot of questions right there.
I did. I like to pack it in a little pocket.
Well, no, I'll try. And first, thank you that you check in. And I know you favorite, like, whatever, I forget what the
I also depend on them at this point. It's sustenance for me.
Well, I found there's a couple of observations that I have with it, too. Well, I want to give full... I think just recently I actually tweeted, it's been in the last month, last 2 months maybe. As you get older, you lose track of time, right? So that Twitter sent me a little thing, hey, it's your 10-year anniversary on Twitter. And so I actually tweeted Dwayne Bonifer, which unfortunately you never got a chance to really meet Dwayne. But Dwayne was the person who told me that, hey, social media is going to take over the world. You need to get on board. And I was like, no, I don't want to. And I remember we were in a development planning meeting, like a meeting of our whatever group. He worked at the college at the time, and he just sat there and wore everybody out. You got to get on social media. This is when Twitter was like exploding. And I'm like, okay, fine. So I started a Twitter handle. And I remember it was funny because there was 1,000 Chris Schmidts on there already. And I was like, well, and a lot of the students call me, when I used to coach years ago, a lot of students started calling me Big Dog. And then now, as you know, a lot of people call me Schmitty. And so I was writing down stuff. How you keep typing in stuff and it says, that's already used. You type in something else, that's already used. And so then I just wrote Big Schmidt Dog. And so my handle became @Big Schmidt Dog. And so I've been @Big Schmidt Dog since. To answer your question, when I was continuing my education and I started working on my, my postgraduate degree, working on my doctorate, and I was studying leadership. That was my field of study. I was reading all this stuff all the time. I'm like, wow, there's so much information out there. There's so much good stuff. Like so many people throughout history, let's just call it throughout history, have been sharing inspirational stuff. And it's just their thoughts. Like so much of it was their life perspectives. Mm-hmm. And so it's like you said, like, how is it that I read stuff? Like I read just as many Instagram posts, tweets, Facebook posts. I mean, we can go on and on. I mean, or stuff I just read on the internet. I go, wow. And I'm taken back by it. So every morning I get up, I'm kind of I've got kind of a Jocko Willink, like kind of thing where I get up at 5:01 every day. For the most part, I don't know. I set my alarm for 5:01. I want to be weird that way. And so I get up at 5:01 and my routine is to go make a pot of coffee. And then I sit and I usually read for a little while. I usually read for, 30 to 40 minutes. And sometimes I'm just surfing the web, surfing social media, reading stuff. And because you know how social media, like my social media is a lot of things about leadership, that kind of thing. So I look at that stuff. I go back and look at maybe whatever books. Like I'm at my home office right now and I'm sitting in front of stacks of books that I've read and stacks of books that are yet still to be read that are on my wish list that I'm going to read. And then whatever I'm moved by in that moment is sort of what I write. So when you read my tweet in the morning, it's usually a fresh thought. It's usually a thought. Wow. Now, I won't lie. There's probably a half dozen to a dozen archived, but they're not archived like, oh, I'm saving this for a special day. I'll be out on my bike riding, and I ride long distances, and I'll be out riding my bike, and I'll see something, or I'll have a thought that I go, oh my gosh, that's something that could be something someday. Like if I think about that more, so I'll type it in real quick, but I save it. And I may not come back to it for a year. And there's a lot of them that don't make sense. I get back and I go, what was I trying to think there? I don't know. But most of the time I'm moved usually by where other people's thoughts and feelings are. So I thought it was interesting that you said that. You actually made me feel really good. I got a sort of warm and fuzzy when you said, I seem to catch you at the right. Yeah. I seem to catch you in the right mood. So here's what I do. When I get on in the morning and I'm reading, so after I do a little stimulus reading, then as I'm surfing the interwebs, looking at social media, I get moved by what other people are putting out there, their feels, you get the feels, like I get their feels. And then I start to think, I don't want to be corny, and I know we both love Dakota, but like all the dash stuff, I remember the first time, there's all these people who are trying to figure out a way to own their dash every single day. And I'm not being corny, and I'm not trying to copycat off of what they're doing, what he's doing and trying to push that. But it's true. Like I'm just trying to make sense of my world every single day. And I realize there's a lot of my friends that are either close friends or maybe they're just Twitterverse friends or, on the gram friends that they just need some positivity. And there's just so much negativity in the world. Like I don't want to add to the negativity. So if I can add something that just makes people go, huh, for half a second, they go, yeah, I'm going to try to smile more towards people, or I'm going to try to be a little bit more positive, or yeah, you know what? The grind is hard, but the grind also teaches us to be a little stronger every day too. Like all that kind of stuff. So yeah. I don't know. I know when I read other people, like the people who influence me with my thoughts, like I'm thankful that they take the time to do that. So it's weird. About 2 months ago, I put out a tweet. Like my morning tweet was really like I was being reflective of all the people like you and others that read it that maybe don't even have to like it, but just read it. Mm-hmm. But yet somehow in a conversation, you said, "Hey, Schmidt, I read your tweet there. That was awesome. Thank you. I needed that one when I read it." Oh, thanks. Mm-hmm. Well, I sent out a tweet that said, "Hey, everybody, I just want to tell you all of you all who follow along, whether you like it or not like it, if you're just quietly listening, thank you all so much because I hear you whether you realize it or not."
Yeah.
Because I have been moved beyond words by the number of people who said what you just said. Like, I read your tweet every morning. Mm-hmm. And so don't like, I have to remind myself, because aren't we all imperfect and we all have egos, right? We all are imperfect. We all have egos. Like sometimes I will think I have the most profound. I'm like, oh my gosh, Chris, this is a stroke of genius. Like right here, like
look how this is moving
you. And I'm typing it. I'm like, man, this is moving me. I'm so fired up. I can't wait till I publish this, and everyone is going to go like, and they're going to love it. And then like late that afternoon, I'll be taking a break and having coffee, and I'll open up Twitter, and that little heart down there, it says, like how many people liked it. There'll be like 2.
Yep.
And I laugh, but I know it's so much more than that. Like I really do. Like I do now. I realize that now because of conversations, and I've gotten private messages and DMs from people and other things. And so, you know what? That's what keeps motivating me to keep doing. Like I look forward to doing that. And then I apologize some days. I'm like, hey guys, I got up this morning, went for a run, and I couldn't be in 2 places at the same time. So you didn't get my morning tweet till 7:30. I try to be consistent and just throw it out there by at least 6-ish, give or take. But it's just, and now I kind of, I don't know, I don't want to say obligated. I don't feel like obligated. I feel like it's sort of my humanly duty to sort of share, you know what I mean? Like I just, like, I always want to make sure there's something positive. I don't know that, maybe I've said something negative, but I don't think I have. I always try to focus on, as simplistic as it sounds, I try to focus on the positive about getting better and overcoming challenges and weaknesses and recognizing the fact that we have bad days and circumstances in life. Like, look, you just shared circumstances. I just shared circumstances. I could be mad at my dad. I could be mad at this. I could be mad at that. But you know what? Hey, that's just life. Shit happens. And, it's time to get over it and harden up a little bit. And then, but in the same time, soften up a little bit and take it in, and sort of enjoy this ride.
Most definitely. I don't want to go down a rabbit hole unless you want to, but I do want to ask, just because I feel very comfortable with you, I'm going to ask you something. When was the last time you felt something like a depression?
Ooh, when was the last time I felt something like a depression? Oof. I don't,
let me just tell the listeners. I mean, I'm going to have to put like a selfie in tandem with this podcast so people can see why they call you Big Schmidt Dog. But you're in fantastic shape. You've competed in how many Ironmans, sir?
I've been fortunate enough to finish 11 Ironman, and I got another one coming up in about 6 weeks.
Oh my God. Okay. That's amazing. How many marathons would you say?
Well, I've only actually done one marathon. That's the New York City Marathon. All my marathons have been inside the Ironman race.
Wow. And
I'm getting ready to do the Marine Corps marathon with Dakota. I'm excited to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. How many miles, rough estimate, would you say you put on the bike a week?
Okay, I'm not being corny and I'm not being ugly, but I don't think of it in terms of like, I try to ride my bike about 10 hours a week. You know, I mean, I look at my yearly statistics because I don't really keep up with I don't keep up with it like on a weekly. Like at the end of the year, I just get because all my stuff is electronic. My running, my biking, and swimming, I keep up with it electronically. So I average about, I don't know, 55 to 6,500 miles a year on my bike. And
Holy
then,
smokes.
You know, almost 1,000 miles of running. And I don't really keep up with, I mean, I keep up with the swimming, but I don't pay attention to swimming. The swimming is just a means to an end.
You casually just put in there over 1,000 miles in running. That's amazing. So safe to say you're no slouch. So well, I think a body
I'm not
that
a picture perfect athlete. I'm no David Goggins. I mean, I don't look like I have no. You've met me. I enjoy. I enjoy eating. I enjoy having an adult beverage, and I'm just a normal person. I got my little. I got my dad bod a little bit, but I try to be physically active.
Of course, and so I think a good way to combat depression or whatever sort of form that it takes is definitely physical activity, right? Exercise. It's a great state change. It's good for your body. It's good for endorphins. It's good for your immune system and so on. I'm not a scientist, so obviously you're no slouch. I doubt you go a week without working out. Maybe post Ironman, maybe when you're recovering. But do you, with stress or do you ever battle anxiety or do you ever flirt with depression or does it ever come at you like seasonally or anything like that?
It's funny. I'm actually doing a presentation on Thursday to a leadership class, and I do the presentation two ways. It depends. I do I call it the corporate version, which is the very generic packaged, hit all my talking points, and it's a very how does it impact you kind of presentation. But there's a different one that I do. It's the same exact material, but it's very personal. So back in 2008, I was almost 365 pounds, and I was being admitted into a hospital because my heart was racing out of my chest. I had collapsed in my office. My anxiety and stress was out the roof. I was completely lost. I was just a mess. I didn't know where I was really going professionally. And not that I wasn't being successful. I just didn't know. I had no clue. I was happily married, but I don't know what that meant. I didn't know what that meant. I was a parent, but I don't know if I was really being engaged as a parent. I don't know. I just was lost. And that's when I made a decision to start changing things in my life. And it was, I remember I went for a bike ride and I couldn't even go, there's a place called Bull Run really close to my house. And my goal was to make it to the stop sign on Bull Run, which is 5 miles. And I couldn't make it up the little hill to get to the end of Bull Run. And I turned around and came home and felt really defeated, and it kind of started from there. And it wasn't like I didn't try to swallow the elephant all in one gulp. I don't know if I was smart enough. Let me just say I was cognizant enough to know that you got to take it one bite at a time. So, my goal was to get under 300, and first my first goal was actually to get to 325. And I did that. And then my goal was to get under 300. I did that. And then I remember I stayed at 285 for a very long time. But it just kind of kept moving. I kept moving the dial. And then, and then it's funny how things happen. Like I don't know if it was that discipline and I'm a believer in all these people out there talking leadership, but I'm a huge Jocko follower. I tease Dakota all the time. I said, my goal one day is for me to connect and sit at the same table as you and Jocko. I said, just because I could sit in awe and listen to you two men talk. But I really do believe that now I recognize I've learned that discipline really does equal freedom, and that it was because of making those little subtle changes and being disciplined and committed to the process, starting to pay more attention to what I eat. I quit doing this. I quit doing that. Just changing things. Do I still enjoy ice cream? Heck yeah. I haven't given up everything. Do I like it? Like I said, do I like an adult beverage? Yes. But I also know there's something to pay. Like I knew that we had this pod that we were going to record this tonight. Mm-hmm. Well, normally I'm riding until dark. So this morning I got up and I ran my 5 miles and had that knocked out, got my workout in at lunch, and now I had freedom to talk with you tonight. You know what I mean? So it's this, I think, so during that time, to answer your question, yeah, I did. I was very, I was fully aware of how internally lonely I was because I was not the person of substance that I needed to be. It had nothing to do with my wife. It had nothing to do with my son, my friends. It was really me. And so I had this thing where I tell people, I said, look in the mirror. Mm-hmm. Start with that person. If you look in the mirror and you're not happy with the person you see, then figure out a way to change what you're seeing in the mirror. And if that means cutting out toxic people in your life, that means cutting out toxic behaviors, choices, getting a new job, starting over, just start one step at a time. Or like I said, one bite at a time on that elephant. Because if you try to swallow it, you will choke. You'll choke. You will every single time. But now when I look in the mirror, I am fully aware of all my imperfections, but they're so much easier to embrace because I know I work at them every day. You know what I mean?
Of course. I would also add to, what you said about looking in the mirror, and I'd add, you also have to have the guts, the audacity to admit that it is as bad as you think it is. It's worse than it is. How did you get there? How did you let this happen? Just speaking from experience, I've looked in the mirror and I've said, it's been worse, or I've been worse, or it could be worse, or, you rationalize. And that's not, you have to make that promise to yourself that you're going to look in the mirror and you're going to be honest with yourself too. Yeah. And that takes guts, and it's going to hurt. And that's a gift that you can give yourself if you have the audacity to look in the mirror.
And I think the thing that I struggle with when you say that is that I didn't know what I believed in, and so part of what I do now in this the presentations I do with young people, or it doesn't mean young people, I do it with corporations and businesses and stuff. I'll just say things like, I ask a simple question, and I am not, again, this is not original thought. I adopted, whatever, whichever way you want to put it, from other people I've read and looked at and presentations I've been, but what's your why? Sort of, what do you believe in? I didn't know what I believed in. I didn't know what was important to me. So going all the way back to what you said before, where did the live, learn, and lead thing come from? That's because I sat there. I still have, and I could show it to you one day, I still have the original program at the conference that I was sitting at in 2008. The guest speaker asked that question, and that's what started me thinking about, I can't stand the person I see when I look in the mirror. And I asked myself, Chris, what do you believe in? What do you stand for? And so when I talked about the word live, to me, it meant to be mentally, physically, and spiritually stretched every single day. And I wasn't stretching myself. And you and I've had some theological conversations about I'm pretty open about faith, just in general. I try not to hammer people into any kind of specific doctrine. That's why I use the word live in terms of a very wide open interpretation. Are you mentally, physically, and spiritually well? What are you doing to be mentally, physically, and spiritually well? That's what I define as living. And then, for me, I realized from the moment I came out the womb, I've been learning something. And at 48 years of age, almost 49, I learn something new every single day. I'm growing and learning from being part of this podcast right now myself. And so education and the opportunity to learn is there every single day. So I think until I die, I'm going to learn. And then at the end, if you can't begin by leading the person that you see in the mirror, see, that's what I'm saying. We all have the opportunity to lead. Everyone wants to say, oh, well, I'm not a leader, I'm shy, or I'm awkward, or maybe, oh, that's for other people. Well, that may be true. No one's asking you to take over a Fortune 500 and be the chairman of the board kind of person, but can you lead your family? Is Knives Monroe, are you a leader within your own family? Yes, absolutely. Did you take the initiative to follow back up with me and talk about how you're developing your brand on your podcast and stuff? Absolutely. You're leading that way in our communities, our churches, our businesses, wherever. When you're at the grocery store, just being kind to another person, a leading person. So that's where that came from for me, if I had to put it all in a big umbrella for you.
So I think I said this on a podcast recently, or maybe I had a conversation with a dear friend, and I was telling him, he had said, and I feel so bad saying this, but we're tight. We've been through everything. I don't think he'll mind, and I won't out him, but he told me that he peaked at 23 years old, and he's 31 now, and what he does is just coasts, he just gets by. That's what he does. And that really broke my heart to hear. And he looked at me and whatever small, pile of beans that I've collected, through my endeavors. I think he saw what I had, one of those grass is greener on the other side moments. And I told him the only difference between you and me is I just want to live and die by my own terms. It's not that I chose the right career path or that I made better decisions per se. The nucleus behind every decision was predicated on it being on my terms. And
it sounds like your joy, your happiness, like, you know what I mean? Like it's not, I didn't hear you put a dollar amount next to that. You didn't say, I have to have so many beans. I have to have so many this. I have to have so many. You just said, your terms. I get it.
My terms, and in relation to my self-worth, my mom sacrificed her dreams and had me at a very young age and never really had a shot to go do what she, to even just be a kid and fuck off. She didn't even have that opportunity. So I owe it to her to live my dreams. So that's, she gets that W on the board for her as well. And part of my purpose and role in life, I believe, and you're very well-versed in pop culture. Dakota, this guy's favorite movie is The Boondock Saints, or that's what he says anyways. He doesn't watch a movie. I never saw a movie with him. I never, ever saw a TV show or a movie with him. And so it's great to talk to someone from the circle that is familiar with pop culture. So I'm sure you're familiar with The Matrix. It's 20 years old by now.
Absolutely.
And I kind of feel like that's my role in society. I feel like I'm a Morpheus. I just want to yank people out of the Matrix. And of course, you can't make the horse drink from the well, but you can take your hands out and say red pill, blue pill, and I kind of feel like I'm one of those, not in a hoity-toity way or a holier than thou or self-righteous way, but just I was fortunate enough by whatever circumstances that were out of my control to get out, to get unplugged, and it's liberating. And I owe it to other people to unplug others. And that's what I try to do. And along the way, I've collected what I refer to as jewels, just gems, like live, learn, lead. Like that's a gem to me. That's the kind of stuff that I pass down to my kids. And that's the kind of father, mother stuff that I needed when I was a kid. And I collect those things. Like I have notebooks beyond notebooks beyond notebooks. And I'm looking at them right now.
Oh, I love your notebooks. I know. I remember.
That's
I
right.
remember you like that was the thing that I noticed most about you. I remember when I first met you, you had your hand tightly around a little, sort of leather, maybe not leather bound, but it looked some type of like, it was, and I could tell like there was a lot of scribbles on it, in it.
Yep.
And I knew exactly what that was, and then I saw it.
I don't know if it's because I saw Harriet the Spy at such a young age, or I don't know what it was that I put it on writing, but it saved my life. And so along my way, I've collected some jewels. And as we're winding down here, what are some of the best kind of gems? You don't have to distill it in 240 characters or less, but what are some gems that you've collected along the way that maybe you haven't had an opportunity to shine some light on? For instance, I'll give you an example. When I was in your office, it was the first time I ever heard about the man in the arena quote. I didn't know about that. Yeah. And then we made it into a flipside canvas, which is awesome. It was like a bestseller. People loved it. It was pretty ubiquitous. Like people had heard of it before, but I never did. And I remember just seeing your eyes light up, like your pupils dilated as you were telling me like the significance of this story. And I was like, it stuck with me. You know, it's one thing to read it on the internet or see it in a post, but you contextually articulating this to me was, well, I'll never forget it. And I was like, yeah, man, it's all about the man in the arena. It was real easy from, the nosebleed section to boo this guy or to armchair quarterback it. But that's a jewel that I take with me and I use in my utility belt to try to wake some people up, right? Activate something in them, awaken the giant, if you will, if I could be so No,
it's funny. It's so funny that you bring that up, because I actually, I don't know when it was, a couple of years ago. It's being a professional person wears your shirt and tie. There's stigmas about what you should and shouldn't have, and I have a few tattoos and stuff like that. But I remember it was really important for me, that particular passage from The Man in the Arena. Obviously, is a very long quote, but I remember I was with my family somewhere, and I said, I want to get a passage of that tattooed on my ribs. And I actually have the section that says, I shall never be one of those cold and timid souls who neither knows victory nor defeat. And because I think you talk about like nuggets, like a long time ago, Dean Adams and I saw a shirt that said nuggets of wisdom. Yes. Now, the person wearing the shirt was not talking about the same nuggets of wisdom that we're talking about, but I actually saw that in Japan. I was traveling in Japan. I saw that shirt, but we've always talked about that. Like, that's like a nugget to me of wisdom. Like, I shall never be one of those cold and timid souls. Like I want to dare to fail. I want to dare to learn. I want to dare to be victorious. I want to, and so when that dash is completely filled up and I'm at the end of that journey, the people will look back and say, man, he sure did a lot of things. Like, he did it on, like, sort of like you said, did it on his terms, and fulfilled a lot of opportunities, and he was getting after it. I'll share two things with you. So, like, in all my reading, I distilled down this one book, and I use this, and I always want to make sure it was never quoted directly like this in the book, but I used this passage, and I've created a formula that I share with every class of students I meet with when I do this presentation. And it says, I call it a math formula because I'm a pretty simple person. I like to keep things simple. Like, to me, everything in life, I try to keep things as much as possible 1 + 1 = 2. You know what I mean? Just
Same.
It's pretty simple math.
Yes.
And then I can always fall back on simple math. So, and I want you to think about this, but positive thinking. And so, like, think about what I do every morning with positive, being very positive and trying to be motivating, thoughtful with our tweets, but positive thinking plus positive action. Because let me frame this up for you. So, like, everybody, like, I don't look, if someone listens to this podcast, they're going to go, boy, those two guys sure did have a really thoughtful conversation. They sure were positive. This, that, the other thing. Well, that's one part of it. There's people walking around all the time having all these thoughts of all of what they want to do, what I could do, what I'm going to do, this, that, the other thing. But then how many people get up and pull the Jocko Will and can get up early in the morning and go put it into effect? There's an action that has to go with it. So I always tell people it's positive thinking plus positive action, equal parts. Maybe sometimes it's 50, 60-40, whatever. But you've got to put those two pieces together: positive thinking plus positive action. Two, this is what it equals: your full human potential. I don't know anybody. Well, let me say that. I mean, let me retract that statement. I like to believe that there's no one out there that doesn't want to reach their full human potential, and what's wonderful about that saying with that those three words, full human potential, is what's your full human potential and what's my full human potential is defined by you, Knives, and it's defined by me. Like, I'm talking about my full human potential. So if I take my positive thinking and I put positive action behind that, then I have the potential then to reach my full human potential. Like, I create a formula that actually is something. So it goes back. So to come full circle, to go back to that man in the arena, like, if I'm out there every day grinding away, trying, putting my best foot forward, I could there's all those expressions that we all know. But if I'm actually doing it, and I got the right attitude about it, then I've got an opportunity to realize my dreams, to realize my potential, and to live up to the person that I'm hoping to be. So I think about that every single day.
That's brilliant, sir. I want you to be able to say, like, wow, we really got somewhere there with Knives. Is there anything else that you want to leave these listeners, or be able to look back at this yearbook and say, oh, cool, that was when I was 48 years old and I said this. I want to leave nothing out. Maybe you hit all your marks, but I just kind of want to say this is like the fourth down and let's go for it,
Oh, wow, it's a powerful question you asked. You asked a lot of powerful questions tonight, first of all, so kudos to you for the work you're doing.
I saved those powerful questions for powerful people that I think can answer.
You're being way too kind, but thank you. I don't know. I think So if I get that one final, someone hands me a mic and I'm standing in front of the podium, I get to give one last, message. Just, seriously, people can spend time crying and complaining. I do it. We all do it. We have our moments. We have our little tantrums. We have our little pity. So, our pity moments, stuff like that. But look, at the end of the day, you just gotta live it. Get out there and do. If there's things that you want, then go get them. If there, it is going to take sacrifice. It's going to take commitment. It's going to take discipline. It's going to take determination. Chris Schmidt, Knives Monroe, Dakota Meyer, we go on and on. Name people didn't come up with all these terms. They were out there way a long time ago. But when you put those things into effect, when you put action behind those words, positive or negative, there's going to be a result. So why not put more positive action behind those things? Like if you know what I mean? Like if you put the positive action behind it, you're probably going to end up on the winning side of things for yourself. But you and I know people, and we've met people who, I call them like the Debbie Downers, like they sort of, they find a reason to be, oh, well, that's not going to work if we do it that way. Well, how do we know? Let's try. And you know what? And along the way, if we mess up, we're going to learn something to be better the next time we try. Like, it's just okay. Like, I don't come home. It's not all rainbows and sunshine every day. It's just not. But when I put my head down on the pillow every single night, I sleep soundly every single night because I've put my best foot forward and I've tried to live the best life I could. I've given it my best effort. Everybody I've come. It's like tonight. Like, I was excited to do the podcast. So when you ask me these questions, I've been sitting here. You know me, Knives. I got ready. I got a pad out. I've been writing down questions. I've been thinking because I'm like, I want to give you my best. I want to give the people who listen to this their best. And so, but that's the expectation that people listening should set for themselves. Are you giving your best to yourself every single day? Because if you are, then that means you're going to be giving your best to everybody else around you too. You know what I mean?
Chris Schmidt, thank you so much for giving me your best on this podcast. I mean, you really did me an honor, and I appreciate that. And I know that if I'm ever, down or out, like, I know I can text you, I can call you, and I could lean on you, and I know you'd be there. So thank you for showing up, because that's 70% of success is just showing up, and you did, and I greatly appreciate that, sir, and thank you for being there for me personally. It means a lot. I appreciate you.
Knives, I appreciate it, and some people say it's overused expression, but I appreciate you. I appreciate you giving me an opportunity, and I mean this. Like, a lot of people are afraid to say this, but I love you, and I mean that, because you've been genuine to my family, and you've been genuine to me, and you have cared for people who I care about. And it goes back to what I said before. So people like you become part of my family, and I love the folks in my family. So you're right. You can reach out to me anytime, and I always try to do my best to help you, or offer counsel, or be there, or pick you up, or pick you up at the airport, or do whatever it is you need me to do. But I wish you continued success. Wish you the best for your family, and hopefully maybe one day we do this again soon. And hopefully we just hang out soon.
It'd be cool to just hang out. I would like that. I love you too, sir. Thank you so much for coming on, and I'll see you down the road.
Thank you, Knives. I appreciate